The week I found out I was diagnosed with cancer, my father-in-law also passed away that same week. So we had already as a family have dealt with so much, and I wasn't about to let this be one more thing to affect me or my family. So I just battled through.
You're a mom of two, so all of a sudden, the logistics and the consequences and the possibilities explode in your mind, right?
Yes.
And none of it's good. So, what was the immediate plan of action?
The first thing I asked my doctors, which they kind of laughed, I said, "Can I still work out through chemo?" And she started laughing at me and she's like, "Of course, that's what we want you to do." I had chemo every Friday. I worked out that morning. I went to chemotherapy that afternoon. I rested for 2 days over the weekend. And then Monday, I made myself get out of bed and work out. And the whole time, I just kept that mantra in my head. It's like, I'm going to beat this. I'm going to win this. I have no hair, no eyebrows, and I'm fighting this. And as my oldest son said, he's like, "Mom, you are a bad bitch." And I said, "Yes, yes, I am. I am the baddest."
Welcome to the Body Experience Podcast. This is going to be a little bit different for us because we're going to talk about something that maybe is sensitive for some people. I know my family has been affected by a diagnosis that could be life threatening, and maybe somebody or even you have had to deal with the trauma of getting news from a doctor that is news you didn't want to hear. So, we're going to get right into it. Please welcome to the Body Experience Podcast, Tracy Ising. Thanks so much for joining us, Tracy, and really appreciate your courage to share your story with us. Take us right to that moment a little over a year ago, January 2025. What was the news?
I had done an ultrasound and a biopsy of a mass that I had found. And it had also had been picked up on a CT scan because prior to that, I'd been sick with an upper respiratory infection. We were trying to figure out what was going on. So I looked at the radiologist and she gave me a look like, "This is not good." And my mom has worked in that field and I knew that face. And I'm like, "You're going to tell me I have breast cancer." She goes, "Well, let's wait for the results of that biopsy." So Friday, I'm sitting in my classroom. It's my planning period and I get the phone call. And they said, "Miss Singh, you have stage 2 invasive ductal carcinoma, which is breast cancer. It's triple negative, which means it's not connected to a hormone and it's very fast growing." So it was kind of a shock to my system. I do not have a family history of breast cancer. Um, and it wasn't even on my radar. So I was not even though in my heart, I think I knew what it probably was, it still was a shock to the system.
Of course, it would be a shock to anybody, you're a mom of two, so all of a sudden, the logistics and the consequences and the possibilities explode in your mind, right? And none of it's
Yes.
good. So,
No, it's
yeah.
not.
So, first, I want to hear like what was the immediate plan of action?
They called me and they went ahead and scheduled for me to meet all my doctors in what we call the marathon of appointments. So I met my oncologist, my surgeon, a radiologist, and then the nurses that were going to be helping, and my reconstructive doctor. The radiologist immediately was out of the picture because as soon as I got diagnosed and realized what I was dealing with, I told them, I said, "I want a bilateral mastectomy," which means taking of both breasts. And they kind of looked at me. Most women, they said that's not where they jumped to, but coming from a family in the medical field, I knew right away. It's like if this was fast growing and it came out of nowhere because they call it environmental when they don't have any other words to explain how I got it. That's why I said if it showed up out of nowhere in one, how do I know it's not going to show up in the other? So I went ahead and made the decision that day to do a bilateral mastectomy, followed up with reconstruction.
It's incredibly bold and courageous and, proactive. Like, let's just deal with it, which, um, you want to try to get the best outcome that you possibly can and minimize whatever threat it might be going forward. And so you started that process. So before we get through the process, Tell me a little bit about, what shape you were in, like what condition you didn't see this coming. You felt pretty healthy, I would guess. Like, um, what was your lifestyle like before this news?
So prior to that, during 2020, like all of us, when the world had shut down and we were eating and drinking all the things, my boss, who was my principal at the time, because I am a science teacher, she's like, "We've got to do something." And she's like, I started 80-day obsession with a friend of hers, a counselor at our school, and we want to get together a bod group and kind of create our own. And I said, "Oh, okay." And she's like, "How would you like to do 21 day fix with me?" And I said, "You know what? I'm tired of my shorts not fitting. I just did a graduation drive through for our seniors because I'm a physics chemistry teacher at a high school at the time. And I couldn't button up my shorts. And I'm like, I got to do something. This is ridiculous." So that's what jump started my journey during 2020. And once I did it, I fell in love. My husband was my biggest supporter at the time. He worked out with me in the beginning just to get me on track. And then I had the support of my bod group, which is the Fit and Fab team. And then we kept going strong through all that. So I was 170 at the start of COVID. By the time I got through MBF, that year, I had already dropped down to 150 pounds. And then from there, I did 9-week control freak and all that coming out. And then I started dropping a little bit more. And I got to what my doctor and I agreed was my healthy weight of 140 pounds. I had muscle, I had a six pack, I had energy, I felt great. And that's what it was. And a friend of mine that we had dinner one night, and when I was explaining about my breast cancer diagnosis, she's like, Tracy, I think divine intervention that you were preparing for a battle you didn't know what was coming. So when I got in shape, 6 years ago, that is what helped me get through the breast cancer. Because the first thing I asked my doctors, which they kind of laughed, I said, "Can I still work out through chemo?" And she started laughing at me and she's like, "Of course." She's like, "That's what we want you to do because with chemotherapy and all the medicines that they're injecting into me, it, causes bone deficiency and muscle loss, and you're going to lose weight and not in a healthy way. And you want to give everything you've got to battling this illness." And I think because I was already in great shape, I had muscle, I knew what to do to work out, I knew how to eat healthy because they handed me a eating plan saying, "This is how we want you to eat." And I'm like, "Well, that's the 4-week gut protocol that I'm on maintenance for." And so I just continued following Autumn's plan and working out even through chemotherapy. I had chemo every Friday. I worked out that morning. I went to chemotherapy that afternoon. I rested for 2 days over the weekend. And then Monday, I made myself get out of bed and work out. And I think that's my oncologist swears that is why my mass shrunk so quickly. She's never seen anything like it. She's like, "I've never had a patient be so textbook with cancer," because my mass was considered non-palpable only after about 3 to 5 treatments. And then they couldn't even find it. I did a CT scan. They found the biopsy pin, but they couldn't find the mass. And that's when I was getting ready to start the Red Devil. So, and she says she contributes to the fact that I was already in such good shape and already knew how to take care of my body, which also helped prevent bone loss. So I just recently had an osteopenia and osteoporosis scan, and they all came back beautifully. And they said most cancer patients have to deal with that, but I didn't because I had already prepared for something I didn't know I was going to prepare for. So it was a tough journey, but it was a good journey. And I think everything I learned from working out and the trainers on body and the 4-week gut protocol that Autumn created, I think that just gave me the ammunition I needed to fight this.
It's amazing. Now, obviously, the lawyers would say, we can't make any claims of having had any effect on your recovery, except obviously, the healthier your body is, the better equipped it is to be able to deal with
Correct.
whatever external trauma might be threatening it. So that just makes sense. That's just logic. But I'm actually surprised. I know that for me, if I'm going through something as toxic and challenging as chemo, I would use that excuse as a reason not to exercise probably, and I would rationalize it by thinking, well, the last thing I wanna do is tax my body right now. I wanna, like you said, let it heal itself. So what first off, what workouts do you use that would not undermine your body's own ability to process the chemo and to help your body heal? Like, what did you turn to?
During the time of my treatment, I did 4 weeks for everybody because it was low impact, but yet I could still build some muscle. And then after that, 25-minute speed train during the worst of the chemo. And when you said like, how do you do that? It's almost like the more I stayed in a routine, the better it was for my mindset, because that was the biggest thing is this is something I can control. Chemo and breast cancer I can't control, but this was something I could control that I knew was going to be beneficial to my body and help me fight the cancer. The workouts were tough, it was hard, sometimes I had to drop set my weights, and I had to just tell myself it's okay because I'm still moving, I'm still doing what's best for for my body, and I'm going to win this. And the whole time I just kept that mantra in my head. It's like I'm going to beat this. I'm going to win this. And as my oldest son said, and you can bleep this out, he's like, "Mom, you are a bad bitch." And I said, "Yes, yes, I am. I am the baddest because I have no hair, no eyebrows, and I'm fighting this, and I'm going to continue fighting it." It was tough. Though the week I found out I was diagnosed with cancer, my father-in-law also passed away that same week. So we had already as a family have dealt with so much, and I wasn't about to let this be one more thing to affect me or my family. So I battled through, and luckily, like Joel and Autumn and Megan and all of them, they make you laugh and smile and you kind of escape reality just for a little moment that I was working out, and just enjoying that moment till I got back to reality when I looked in the mirror and realized I'm going through cancer. So it was tough, but I did it.
Amazing, and congratulations, and, it's people like you that make us all proud of what we do, honestly. This is when it's more than a business, and it truly is a mission. But I'm
Yes.
curious though, your doctors, you're doing half-hour workouts, 25-minute workouts. At no point they said, "Hey, you've gotta back off, like, your body's gotta recover."
Nope. They kept pushing me forward. The only time I had to take a pause was when it came to surgery. And that's the only time that I was limited on my workouts. But I did Lacey's Walk Week during that time. Even though I couldn't move my arms, I could move my feet and I could cycle on my body bike. So I still listened to my doctors. I'm very good about listening to them. But, I also had to keep moving in a way that would help me heal, but help me continue moving forward so I wasn't losing mobility. I wasn't, I'm still trying to build muscle and just to continue making sure that I'm fighting that cancer. But the only time I had to take a pause was during my surgeries. And that's when 10-Minute Body came at such a great time because the first thing out of surgery, after my last surgery, she's like, "Okay, again, Tracy, you're back to 10 minutes." And I'm like, well, this is perfect because there's a new program that just came out, 10-Minute Beginner. And even though I started off with the 3-pound ankle weights, because that's all I had and that's all I could lift, I started with that. And then slowly I was able to increase and use the vest and everything. But that's what was so, it's like almost serendipitous that that program were to launch at the time when I needed it most.
So it's amazing. Like, what you're talking about is going from walk week with Lacey, 10-minute beginner, 10-minute workouts, and gradually using the weights, then putting the ion vest on and building up. How have you built up? How have you come back?
There's a little picture on my Instagram of a teeny tiny little muscle, but I'm proud of that muscle because I worked hard to bring some of that back because I lost a lot of muscle, unfortunately, with chemo. No matter how much I work out, I'm not going to build muscle. The medicine just zaps everything. So it's like that's my mission. I need to get that muscle and I need to gain a healthy amount of weight. Which is scary for a lot of women when you say gain weight, but I had gone from 140 to 119 once chemo was done, which is not great. So it's like I got to get back to that healthy weight. And I was already eating healthy, but I had to adjust my portions a little bit to more so I was able to get more food in to help me gain some weight, but also to, with Lacey's program, the beauty of 10-minute body is, I mean, it works you. I mean, after 10 minutes I was like, "Holy cow." I mean, my abs were killing me. My husband made me laugh. I'm like, "Don't make me laugh." Lacey just killed my abs and I was starting to get some muscle, and then after a while, once I built up enough stamina and my doctor's like, okay, you can go past 10 minutes, I discovered they stack beautifully. So you can stack one on top of the other and make it a 20-minute workout, although you're shortening the program, but you can repeat. So I was stacking them, like doing two workouts. Like I would pair like the upper body with the core and then maybe the lower body with the cardio, trying to strategically stack it. And then I would do that for 1 week and then repeat it. And then I discovered, because I fell in love with beginner and focus. And then when Joel came out with 10-minute speed train, adding that 10-minute block on the end of a workout just to kind of like an extra little oomph to it. So that's why I love those programs so much because they're so versatile that, for when you're limited on what you can do, whether it's a time frame or it's your doctor's request, but then as you start getting better and you're out of restrictions, then you realize like this can be a full-blown program. It's not
Yeah.
just 10 minutes, it's so much more, but man, they jam pack. I When I stacked it the first time, I was like, "Oh, ooh, that was hard." I was like covered in sweat, but it was good. It was really good. They're wonderful programs.
So I'm curious, did you use any body supplements before the surgery? And then if so, what did you have to change?
With cancer, you have to watch out for like your vitamins A, B, and C, because they can actually weaken the chemo. And I'm having what I call chemo brain. I'm blanking on the actual term for those. So she let me continue using Energize in the morning because I'm like, oh please, I'm a 4 a.m. workout girl because I have to be at school at 7:30 in the morning. So I'm a teacher. So it's like I've got to have my energized. If I can't drink coffee, because at the time I couldn't stand the taste of coffee. And I only drink coffee maybe once a week, but I was like, I need my energized. And she looked at the ingredients. She goes, okay, those are safe. She's like, but you need to make sure that you are taking in extra protein. And I'm like, well, I use Shakeology. And so she looked at the ingredients. She goes, oh my God, this is perfect. So I was able to use Energize and Shakeology all throughout chemo. And then once surgeries and chemo and everything was done, now I'm able to add back in my other supplements like collagen, and I can now do creatine, which I couldn't take during chemo. And then I just started Belvital last week because after chemo, I was sent through medically induced menopause due to the chemo. So now my hormones are kind of all over the place. So luckily, already being on the gut protocol, transitioning to Belvital was a no-brainer. And now I'm using her supplements just to keep my blood sugar, my metabolism, my stress, all that down. And it's been great.
I'm sure that you've got a tolerance for stress that is superhuman, from what it sounds like. The trauma of losing a family member, and then getting this news. Again, mom of two, so you've got those responsibilities through all this, and you didn't throw in the cards. Like again, like I said, I think I'd be the first to put my diet and fitness on hold to take advantage, play the self pity card. But the fact that you decided to be resilient and take the initiative to be part of your own recovery is a real inspiration. And I'm sure people ask you what this experience has been like. And I wonder what your perspective is overall. I'm not trying to create a commercial here. I just wonder, you're kind of what we would call a walking billboard for a healthy lifestyle, not necessarily the before and after that we all see, but for the importance of lifestyle in the overall support of life itself. And I wonder what sort of advice or epiphany you might have had through this trying experience that you can share with us so that we can all benefit from your strength and the success that you've experienced since that news in January 2025.
Any advice I would give anyone is to, if you're not on any type of fitness journey, or if you're just sitting on the couch going, I want to start, you just need to start and start now. I am so glad. I do not regret ever starting my fitness journey in 2020. Part of me wishes that I started it even earlier. But I think it just took finding the right people. So my Fit and Fab team were a tremendous support to me during my cancer journey. They cheered me on every step of the way. Kept like on chemo days, I got text and messages on our Facebook group just saying, Tracy, you got this. But the advice I give is just, if you're afraid to start, start now, because you don't know what the future is going to bring for you. You don't know what's going to happen. And it's good for your body, your soul, and your health to get it under control now. So, because I'm 50, I just turned 50 this past year, and I want to live to see 80. I want to live to see 100, and I still want to be, that grandma or that 100-year-old that's running marathons, because I'm a runner and I love running. So I still want to look ahead, or be 80 years old and look back and go, I'm so glad I did that, because I'm still in the best shape of my life. I'm not you know, going to be in a nursing home. I can, pick up my grandkids. I can chase them around. I can run and be the coolest grandma that there is and the fittest grandma that there is. So start now. Don't wait, because you don't want to go forward and then the shoe drops and you're like, I wish I did this then. I'm so glad I started then, because looking back, it's almost like I pat myself on the back. I'm like, you did that. And then you were ready for this. And I think that's why I got through it so quickly. And when it was hard, there were moments that I cried. I won't lie. The red devil part of my cancer treatment was tough. It was a lot of tears, but I just pushed forward, and that's all you can do.
Thank you so much for sharing that story. And it's people like you that show us all that there doesn't have to be quit in us. And literally, it's pretty rare to have somebody who shares their story so selflessly as you just have. And I'm really grateful for you to come on to this podcast and show us that as much as we have to market this stuff, you got to sell it. And obviously showing before and afters. And, we launched 30-day booty boost, and you have the names of these things that are there to elicit attention and get people excited about doing it. But ultimately, to be able to enhance someone's journey and help prolong their journey and their quality of life um, makes my job one of the most rewarding jobs in the world. And it's people like you that remind me of that. So thank you so much for joining us today, Tracy, and God bless you.
Thank
And
you.
um, just appreciate you so much, and we hope you continue your stellar recovery, and we can circle back to this and celebrate it in 5 years and 10 years and 20 years. It's just amazing.
Yes, definitely.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, and thank you for um, creating these programs and offering, because it's been life changing, absolutely life
Well,
changing.
we'll keep doing it then. All right. Well, thank you,
Thank you.
Tracy. And look, that's these are the kind of gifts that we get to share with our audience, with you. And, not to try to sell you anything. I don't care. Go for a walk or get some dumbbells, figure it out. Or like Tracy, go through a program and see what having a step by step program can do to help you be consistent and what was the common theme through her whole story was community. And from our roots as Beachbody now to BODi, the one consistent has been that community is the catalyst for real consistency, for real healthy change, and for people discovering that they do have the ability to keep going and to help others keep going by forming these groups, wherever they are. They can be on Reddit, on Facebook, they can be within our community, in the BODi Experience community. So this is your invitation to join a community. This is your invitation to join BODi. And above all else, this is your reminder that your health is best taken care of by taking care of it. And I hope you continue to do that. And if you're just thinking about getting started, look, I'm 62 years old. I'm just coming back from my own little back injury that I had. And it's been 5 months since I've been able to do a leg workout, and I just got started. So I'm starting over. So if I can start over, you can get started now. And I hope you do. That is what the BODi Experience and the BODi Experience podcast is all about. Okay, that's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the BODi Experience. And I hope in the meantime, you stay healthy, you stay consistent, you eat well, and you help others do the same. Thanks so much for watching.
The experiences and results shared in this podcast may vary based on effort, consistency, and goals following BODi's exercise programs and nutrition plans.